I want to start off with an apology to the CEO of the Pokemon Company because I'm going to butcher his name, Mr. Tsunekazu Ishihara. He was recently speaking to Dime about what's going on with Pokemon, and he talked about Let's Go Pikachu, Let's Go Eevee, which I've talked about in the past, but I'll mention again that I didn't anticipate really enjoying that game. In fact, I didn't plan on buying it at all, other than buying a copy for my son, maybe. And when I ended up playing it, I was blown away at how fun and relaxing it was. So I think that they've done a great job there. But the big news here is talking about bringing a mainline Pokemon game to a home console for the first time. Game Freak were wondering if they. Well, here's what he said. He said it was much more difficult than what we expected. He said that they wondered whether or not they could really put Pokemon on the Switch, and if so, whether it would make it interesting for all three play styles. Now, first off, I find this comment to be so weird because they were running. I don't think he's talking about technically. Obviously, the Switch has no problem running Pokemon Let's Go because it runs really well. I only noticed a little bit of slowdown when I was playing, and for the most part, it's just very, very smooth and awesome to play. Although I haven't played in handheld very much at all. But they're used to making games on a much more limited system like the 3DS. But what he's saying here is how can they make it interesting to all three play styles, the TV mode, the handheld mode, and the tabletop mode. He said it was 5 times harder to make Pokemon on the Switch compared to making it on just a handheld system like the 3DS. And I wonder if this is something that enters most developers' minds, because I know that it's something that a lot of people probably don't think about very much. I know that I don't. Let me use my favorite game of all time, for example, Breath of the Wild. I adore that game. I've got like 200 hours in Breath of the Wild, and I'm sure at some point I will delete my save and start over and play it again, because I just love exploring that world. And it has nothing to do with the fact that it's on the TV, or the fact that it's in handheld mode, or that I can take the Joy-Cons off, prop up the kickstand, and play in tabletop mode. Because all three of those is basically the same experience for me. From a game player's perspective, I don't look at those as 3 distinct modes. They're just 3 different ways that I can play the game the same way. And for me, that's the benefit of the Switch. I don't feel like Nintendo, with Breath of the Wild, sat down and tried to design 3 different ways to play. Whereas with Pokemon Let's Go, the Pokemon Company, or a Game Freak, kind of did. Like, when you play in handheld mode, you can use buttons to play. When you are in tabletop mode or on TV mode, you have to use motion controls. And I almost feel like that is something that they did to the detriment of the game. It's a great game. I had a lot of fun playing Pokemon Let's Go, and I will continue to play that game. I want to complete my decks. But I feel like they kind of painted themselves into a corner by saying, well, when we play it this way, we want to make sure that this is the control scheme that people use. And I almost feel like this is some self-imposed hardships from the Pokemon Company and Game Freak, because I feel like as much as I enjoyed Pokemon Let's Go. I would have enjoyed it 1,000 times more if I could just use the buttons on the controller all the time rather than only in handheld mode. And I think it would have gotten even better reviews. I think a lot of people are like me, and they would prefer not to throw their hands forward when they want to throw a Pokeball. I mean, I was sitting at this desk at one point playing Pokemon Let's Go, and I kind of had my legs, like, I was leaning back and I had my legs crossed, and I went to throw a Pokeball like this, and my hand hit the desk, and the Joy-Con went flying out of my hand. Luckily my hand wasn't moving very fast because it didn't travel very far. It ended up hitting the computer screen here at my desk, and I was like, oh man, I can't believe I did that. That's the kind of thing that would never have happened if I'd have just been able to push a button in order to throw the ball. And at the end of the day, I don't think that the experience of playing Pokemon Let's Go in handheld mode or tabletop mode or on TV mode would have been all that different. But I would have enjoyed it a lot more if they would just give me the option to play the way that I want. So Mr. Ishihara saying that it was 5 times harder to make a Pokemon game on the Switch because they wanted to make it interesting for all 3 playstyles, TV mode, handheld mode, and tabletop mode. I think that's self-imposed, and if they had just said, let people play the way that they want on the mode that they want, it would have been easier for them to develop, as well as more well-received by the public in general. What do you guys think?